Welcome to the Darshan Talks Pharmacy live stream and podcast. We discuss pharmacy entrepreneurship and issues that may arise. If you like these videos and podcasts, please like, leave a comment, please subscribe. This video and podcast is brought to you by the Kulkarni Law Firm. Reach out to the Kulkarni Law Firm for advice on third-party issues, state board issues, contracting, pharmacy purchase and sales issues, and more, especially in the context of fraud and compliance. Reach out now at darshan@kulkarnilawfirm.com or call me at 302-252-6959. You can also just visit our website at kulkarnilawfirm.com. That's KULKARNI lawfirm.com. Hey guys, really excited to be here again. I get to talk to the man, the myth, the F legend, Rudy Dajie. Hey Rudy, how are you?
Hey man, I am good. I really like when you put your pilot voice on and put these things together. So we're just gonna take us up to 30,000 feet here and just keep the seatbelts on for safety. Okay, thank you.
That's fair. You know what? I deserve that. Before we continue, Rudy, do you want to introduce yourself to people?
Rudy Dajie, pharmacist, entrepreneur. I can't even say it. I must be a great one. Been in the pharmacy business, real estate side hustle. I've started my own consulting business, interim CEO, board advisor, help you with life shit, or just get you out of the mud, or make you better, make you more profitable, whatever you want help with. For the most part, I think I can help you. Psychologically, I can't help you. I can't help myself, so don't ask me for that help with that. But other than that, that's what we got.
And just to clarify, Rudy, do you only give this advice in the pharmacy world, or do you actually help in other areas?
That's across all businesses. It's all the same sort of tools. As long as I can understand the business, you can apply the same principles.
Okay, so and just for people who have seen you on this interview series a bunch of different times, what is wearerudy.com?
So that's my actual website with my brand and the things and the offerings that we have. So feel free to check it out. You can sign up too. I throw out some different recipes of things that I like and bourbon recommendations. So it's kind of just a neat space.
Very cool. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today, which is skilled nursing facilities. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the opportunities in skilled nursing facilities. What are the risks? What kind of fraud issues have we been dealing with? What do you see as the biggest opportunities and sort of advantages to being in that space? So as we always do, and we did the last time, we're going to do a SWOT analysis of skilled nursing facilities. So let's start with the strengths, Rudy. First of all, what are skilled nursing facilities?
So also known as a SNF, right? Skilled nursing facilities are long-term care facilities. Generally speaking, they're state funded, but that's not always the case. Meaning, like they will receive funds from the state, but you can also pay out of pocket to be there. They're at a care level that is beyond assisted living, but below a hospitalization or a rehab facility, and they're generally for more of a long-term care stay, unless it's somebody that's rehabbing and it's going to be discharged. But and this is sort of us talking about long-term care last time as a space in pharmacy and why it makes sense. And now we're sitting here talking about the different spaces within long-term care. So today we're going to talk about skilled nursing, just to sort of frame that up.
Right. So we're talking about these facilities that don't require the same amount of attention as, say, a hospital, but probably more so than a assisted living facility. From a pharmacy perspective, does that cause any additional problems that you need to be aware of?
Well, I wouldn't call them problems. I just think there's different things that you need to provide as a pharmacy versus, so a pharmacy that services skilled nursing facilities would be probably required to provide carts, would provide a pharmacist that's going to make med recs and perform med recs and possibly round with prescribers. You're going to have a lot more interaction with direct care and professional staffing like nursing. And definitely have to be available 24 hours a day. A lot of those facilities will be running Pyxis systems or something similar to that nature too. So you'll be possibly, as a pharmacy, you'd have to pay for the Pyxis system as well. And then you're going to obviously have to put protocols in place to service the Pyxis system. And I'm using that word Pyxis as a ubiquitous term for any sort of dispensing, on-site dispensing system.
Right.
So I think there are a fair amount of differences. And in my experience, and this is just anecdotally, if you're a pharmacy that services skilled nursing facilities, you generally don't service assisted living. You're usually niche. Like I've always found that people that service skilled nursing facilities are like, there's a million reasons why they wouldn't want to get into assisted living. And then the pharmacy that's servicing assisted living, they have a million reasons why they don't want to get into skilled nursing.
So let's explore that a little bit. Give me a million reasons why you don't have that crossover from skilled nursing to assisted. When we're in assisted, we'll talk about the other version.
So I think that people that are very accustomed to servicing skilled nursing, they like the fact that they have nurse interaction. They like the fact that decisions can be made on site without having to call individual prescribers. They look at it and say these things are much more streamlined. And then if you're on the assisted living side, you're saying, well, I don't want to have a pharmacist do med recs. I don't want to have a Pyxis system. I don't want to have to provide carts. So there's pros and cons to each. And I think that when you're in that space and you're comfortable and you've created systems to service that space, you don't necessarily want to create a separate division or have to go back and retrain people to say, okay, for these facilities, we're going to act this way and perform this way. And for these facilities, we're going to perform and act this way. Also, med pricing is very different in skilled nursing. You know, the first 30 days is generally on the skilled nursing facility. There's formularies, which means that they want to pay as little as possible. After the 30 days, it falls onto Med D. And assisted living is always just straight Med D. So skilled nursing facilities are incentivized to reduce drug costs as much as possible. And then pharmacies have to institute the formulary and manage the formulary that they've agreed to. And then within the facility have opportunities to substitute, because if an outside prescriber prescribes Nexium, they say, well, look, omeprazole is our product, and that's what we switch people to. So, and then within assisted living, that's very challenging because
I'm going to ask you, Rudy. Let's stick to the skilled nursing because there's so much to get into.
Yeah, no, I'm bouncing back and forth. So,
yeah, let's stick to skilled nursing right now. So, skilled nursing, you are managing formularies. You're basically being very, very clinical. You're deciding what should be available. Are you now responsible for the pharmacy budget, or are you saying that you just dispense the pharmacy budget?
The skilled nursing facility is managing the pharmacy budget, saying this is how much they want to spend. And obviously, the less they can spend, they're happier. But the pharmacy is managing the formulary, which is agreed upon between the skilled nursing facility and the pharmacy. So if something is coming over that's outside formulary, the pharmacy is making a call back to the facility saying, this is off formulary. Do you want to prescribe it? If you do, it's going to cost this much, et cetera. I think they also have, auto interchange protocols in place too.
Sure. So, I mean, it sounds like you're basically running a hospital pharmacy, but just outpatient for the most part from a pharmacy perspective. Is that accurate?
I think that's reasonably accurate. Yeah.
So it's just more expensive to do it as opposed to in a hospital, you are both owning the budget and managing the budget. In the case of a pharmacy running a skilled nursing facility, you're just managing and operating the services that are due under a skilled nursing facility, but they decide the budget, they decide how to enforce it. And
then you've also got agreed upon pricing too, right? So you're gonna negotiate in the 30 days what your pricing is going to be for dispensing 7 days of omeprazole. And in the first 30 days, generally speaking, you're dispensing on a 7-day schedule, because if for some reason the person passes or they leave the facility, you're not going to have that much drug waste and drug cost.
Okay. Did you end up doing a lot of sniffs or not so much?
I never serviced any skilled nursing facilities, but I have so much knowledge.
my big concern is just how humble you are and how little you.
I am really humble. It's just I can't help it. I think I need to work on my self-confidence.
Yeah, I had to take away the banner at the bottom so that people could see the name you're using. The man, the myth, the effing legend, Rudy Dajie is what he's going with right now. Okay, so what we're talking. So did you do assisted living? Was that what you did?
Yes, I did assisted living. I did a lot of assisted living and hospice and behavioral health group homes.
Okay, so let's continue with SNFs right now. We'll get you back into your comfort zone next time around. But so let's talk about strengths. The strengths obviously are: is it easier to recruit pharmacists to do clinical work, or is it harder because there are just fewer pharmacists who can?
I think it depends on the time, right? I mean, I think there were points in time where it was easier to recruit pharmacists, and I think there's points in time when it's less attractive. I think that there's a lot more different opportunities for pharmacists now, and that's growing, and that's a good thing. So I think it's harder and harder to find pharmacists. But I think if you're looking for clinical pharmacists, it's a space that they'd want to be in. And if you're looking for a retail pharmacist, there's a space for retail pharmacists. I think everybody has their own sort of things, and I don't think it's necessarily as difficult. It's not tremendously specialized. We're all taught clinical information. It's just if we wanted to apply it and go ahead and do that. Now, I mean, I could go ahead and be a clinical pharmacist and do med chart reviews. I mean, it would take me a while to
so much.
I know, right? Like, you do not want to be in that sniff when I'm doing them.
Just the idea of this chart was reviewed by Rudy Dajie just scared the daylights out of me.
They're like, all the drug interactions, they're fine. It's fine.
It's Coumadin and amiodarone in high doses. Yeah, it's fine. No problem. Yeah. Keep going.
Just put my initials in. Let's override it. Let's go.
Even better, you just have someone else put your initials. Just to be clear for everyone, we're joking. This is not legal advice. This is not clinical advice. Oh my God.
It's a good thing I know a really good lawyer.
I might need him after this conversation. But okay. So strengths are obviously, I think, the new pharmacists coming out of pharmacy school would love this. The old pharmacists who worked in retail and are saying they want to practice clinical would love this. But those people who kind of want to coast a little bit more, they're kind of like, I'm over this whole clinical thing. They probably don't want to be part of this. How go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, most likely not. They probably want to be in more of an adjudicatory role, right? Where they can either be sitting at a desk doing adjudication or working for Express Scripts where you actually never even see a drug. You're just looking at pictures and adjudicating, that's
right.
I mean, and like reality though, and unfortunately in that role, like, you're really just being paid for a license, right? You're not really, in my opinion, I don't really think you're actually doing anything.
Which role are you talking about right now? Because are you talking the PBM role?
No, yeah, I'm talking about like where you're just like doing adjudication, right? Like if you're just like literally like my son
can define as adjudication, just to be clear, because I'm thinking dispensing, but that's not what you're defining as adjudication.
Like PV1 and PV2. Like my son, who's 10, could look at a pill that's in a bottle and look at a picture on a screen and say yes or no. I mean, and that's really what we're getting paid for now. It's really dialed down to that in some roles. They've
been talking about two different things. They've been talking about decentralized pharmacies, which really fits right into this model. And they've been talking about technicians replacing pharmacists. Are we sort of slowly moving towards that space where pharmacists are? You don't need a pharmacist to be looking at a pill going, that's the right pill. And you don't need a multiple pharmacists at multiple facilities, because you could probably just put them all in one location and they do all of that from a centralized location.
No, I mean, absolutely. And that is the future, right? I mean, the CVS on every corner is eventually going to go away, and you're going to go into a CVS that is a mega CVS that's going to service 5-10 towns. And maybe then there's opportunity for niche pharmacies to start again and smaller players to come in. But the dynamic is going to change. And especially with CVS being the powerhouse that it is, and Walgreens and Rite Aid really just hanging on by a thread. I mean, Walgreens I know is a $1 billion company, but it really like is not performing, in my opinion. So I think that CVS is going to be the big player that sort of, monopolizes it all. And in doing so, why would they, if they are the sole provider, why would they want to have a location in every corner? It's a huge cost, and they can gain so much more efficiencies. Decentralized pharmacies absolutely coming. It already is here, right? I mean, you can Walgreens like if there's a slow store, they're pushing scripts from one store to another for them to be verified. I mean, it makes sense. I would do the same thing if I was operating a business. And the only thing that is slow to evolve is Board of Pharmacy regulations, which are inconsistent across states, right? So, in my state, it's a ratio of 2 to 1, but if 2 are certified, then you can have 4 to 1. And so apparently in Massachusetts, like the pharmacists are less adept at managing people, because in Rhode Island, there's no ratio. So the Rhode Island pharmacists are much more capable than the Massachusetts pharmacists, because you could manage 10 technicians.
The real issue I don't think has to do with your capability. It's really protectionism, in that you want to keep pharmacy jobs. So to me, that makes sense. The question is, at what point is it so protectionist that it's problematic and you're not serving patients anymore? So let's explore that a little bit more. So what we said was that there are opportunities in terms of the right kinds of jobs. How is reimbursement in this area? You spoke a little bit about the 30 days. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So when people are Med B, they're getting a capitated rate, meaning the skilled nursing facility, per day, right? So in that rate, the skilled nursing facilities have to provide food, they have to provide healthcare, they have to provide bedding, they provide medication. Everything is in that capitated rate, so by day. So that's why they're incentivized to minimize costs as much as possible, so that they can actually make money on that particular patient. The incentive is for them to drive costs down as much as possible. Otherwise, they're not profitable. Once they come off the 30 days and they're on Med D.
Can we start from before that? So explain this part to me. So under Med B, it's capitated, which means it's all sort of put together. Now let's explore that a little bit more. When they pay you, when CMS pays you or Medicare pays you, or would it be Medicaid in this case? Medicaid pays you. First, I'm asking this question: is it Medicare or Medicaid?
Well, nobody's paying me as the pharmacy owner, other than the skilled nursing facility in the 30 days. But Medicaid, if they're on Medicaid, or Medicare Part B, is paying the skilled nursing facility their capitated rate per day.
Okay. And it's per day. So they get a capitated daily rate, not a capitated monthly rate.
Correct.
Okay. So when you dispense a 7-day supply, theoretically, you could land up eating some of those costs, because if the patient didn't leave on time, they might take the pills that you dispense, even though the patient was not there. How does that work? Are you worried?
As the pharmacy owner, I'm not going to eat any of that cost, but the skilled nursing facility could eat that cost. And that's why they go to a 7-day dispense versus dispensing a full 30 days, right? Especially if the person is very critical and they're not on medication that they know if they're going to be consistently on too. So they try to be thoughtful about that. And I get paid because we've agreed upon the price of these particular drugs on the formulary on a per day cost. So if we dispense 7, we get paid this much. If we dispense 14, we get paid this much, et cetera, et cetera.
And how often do you negotiate those? Is it on a monthly basis, or a quarterly basis, a yearly basis? How do you negotiate that?
I think, generally speaking, those are negotiated every year.
Okay.
And I think if there's something that goes generic that they want to add to formulary, there's obviously changes that go on throughout the year. So formulary changes are almost like change orders on building a house, right? You're like, okay, we're going to, add this to formulary and we agreed upon this price. So, and there's companies out there that will help you manage that if your software system doesn't do a great job with it. So you can bring in, you can essentially run all of your claims through your own sort of PBM or switch yourself. And that way you run adjudication for every claim and you can have those price structures set. So you're not, some software systems don't do a great job with those tables and structures. Like, so say if you're saying like for omeprazole 7 days, we're going to charge $7, but for 14 days, we're only going to charge 10 because it's one-time dispense fee versus, so you got to run tables. And some systems don't do a great job with that. So you can structure it within other software vendors that will run a switch for you.
So if you did do that, why wouldn't you just invest into your software system as opposed to going and paying a continuous vendor to keep managing that? From a cost perspective, wouldn't it always be cheaper to do it yourself?
It would, but if you have 7,000 patients on a system that you've grown through into, to make the transition to a new system and train 60 people and bring everybody up to speed and integrate,
it's just not worth it.
Sometimes it's really just not worth it.
Got it. Okay, so we have, like you said, you're never seeing the emerging costs, like for example in the ED, the first day is a big issue. You've gotten past that because the patient's coming in. They're now in a capitated payment system. It's on a per day basis. You will dispense 7-day supply, which will be some fixed meds that they will get whoever you are. So it's your doc, you say it's your ibuprofens and blah, 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 like a standard supply. And then you'll probably give some more just to keep them going. So that might be their regular daily rates or daily meds or whatever. That's done on a 7-day basis. Those get negotiated out upfront with the skilled nursing facility. At the end of the 7 days, you at the end of 4 of those, you're going to start talking about hitting that Medicare Part D. Talk to me a little bit more about that transition.
Well, you're going to hit that after 30 days.
Right. I was trying to get close to that. 30.
Right.
Yep.
So then they're going to transition over, and now you can still fill for 7 days, right? But your prescription has to be specifically written for 7 days if you're going to fill for 7, right? Because otherwise you're going to have 4 dispensing fees, and Med D doesn't want to pay 4 dispensing fees, right? Because that's costly. So once you transition over to Med D, then that person is now going to be, traditionally billed like they normally would, and they'd have copays associated with it. And in that instance, when they're still in the skilled nursing facility, those copays do go to the skilled nursing facility to be paid for.
Okay. So you never, as a pharmacist, deal with any of this. You know what your costs are. You know what profits you've got to make. That's all you're looking at. Everything gets billed through the skilled nursing facility.
Correct.
Interesting. That's a really, for me, the bane is the idea of being the retail pharmacist, where you're dealing with PSAOs, you're dealing with all this crap. Instead, what you're saying is you are removed from all of that headache. The SNF takes all of that, and you're just in the business of dispensing, providing clinical advice, and that's where you add value. Is that a fair?
That's fair, and that's why a lot of SNFs, when they have a large number of them, have their own pharmacy. Because if they have their own pharmacy, now they're in-housing all of that, right? And then they're making money, and the pharmacy is just, it allows the SNF to make a lot more money because the costs are lower.
Yeah.
Because you don't care about your markup. The pharmacies are just like a throwaway.
Right. That's really interesting. So that's are those the only strengths, or are there any other strengths of being in this space?
I'm
just going through a SWOT analysis. So
I think those are all the strengths. I think we touched upon a majority of them. I'm sure there's others that maybe I'm not
can't think of right now. Weaknesses.
Well, I think the weaknesses are that things are getting more expensive, and the capitation probably isn't growing appropriately. Medicaid budgets are being slashed.
But you don't care as a pharmacist, do you?
You don't, but as skilled nursing facilities are going out of business, then you're having less and less patients to serve, and you're having to figure out what you're going to do, or you're getting squeezed on your formulary side, right? So it was very lucrative for you because you're making $7 on 25 cents of omeprazole net, but now they're like, look, we can't afford this, and now you're going to make $3. If you want to service us, you're going to do it for $3 because I can go to Omnicare, and that's what they're willing to do it for because they can,
Right.
you know. So I think those are some of the weaknesses, and then the population demographic is changing. Less and less people are ending up in skilled. More and more people are staying at home or in assisted living, and so I mean, I think some of those are the weaknesses, and there's a fair amount more costs associated with being in the skilled nursing business, right? You're going to provide carts. You have to pay for those carts. Some of those carts could be $1,000, $1,500 a cart, and you need 4, and you got to swap them out or whatnot, and then the Pyxis machines or things of that nature. And I'm sure there's other technology that might be like EMR. You have to have an EMR. That's a significant cost. And in some places you don't. Like, for example, in the behavioral health space, some places they do want an EMR. We never really had one, and it wasn't that important. But in skilled nursing, it's pretty much mandated. You have to do those things.
Now, what I assume the EMR that you use has to be the same EMR that the SNF uses, or are there usually just bridges that connect those pieces?
No, I think you just need to be like, so if they're on, whatever Darshan's,
Epic.
Yeah, Epic. If they're on Epic, you have to pay as the pharmacy, you have to pay the bridge, right? Okay. Like you got to be paying to have Epic pick up your data, right, and put it in a format that they can utilize.
Okay.
And then there's sometimes, a fair amount of work on your side too to manage those. So you may have to manage each of those systems differently depending on if some people are on Epic and some people are on something else.
Cerner or whatever it is. So you land up suddenly going from being just a pharmacy to suddenly running an IT business.
Correct.
That you may not have wanted to. Interesting. And I know we're going to discuss this next time, but you don't have this issue in the context of assisted living because you may not need to connect to the systems. You're managing your systems separately from the patients. Is that accurate or not quite?
Well, so it depends on the assisted living. They may at this point, some of them be looking to have sort of an EMR technology in place, but for the most part, it used to be that they'd run manual medication administration records. We'd print them off, send them with their cycle meds, and they would work off those and fax changes back and forth, or they'd have a system of their own that they'd be running, or a system that integrates. But I haven't seen them use a full blown system yet. But that doesn't mean it isn't happening.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about opportunities. If you are running a SNF, is your natural tendency to expand into assisted living or go into almost running a small hospital and helping manage small hospitals? Like, what's happening at that space? What are the opportunities, for example, law changes that might help you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what law changes would come into place. I think that, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if there's going to be any changes that are going to help folks in that space. I think if they're willing to spend more money on from the Medicaid's perspective, because I think that's really what's crushing skilled nursing facilities and having them close, because most people aren't paying cash.
Right.
Into skilled nursing, and people are intelligent, right? So they're like, 5, whatever, you're an attorney, so 5 years, whatever the rule is, before my parents are very old, or they're migrating all the funds to somewhere else, and then they're saying that they have no funds, and then that they qualify for Medicaid, and then they go into these facilities, and it's on the Medicaid, versus saying, well, they have significant funds, they can pay for it themselves. I mean, ideally, if you're running a skilled nursing facility, you want people that have funds, just like an assisted living. You don't want to be taking Medicaid. You want to get paid cash. You want folks, and that's higher, right? You're going to make more money on those individuals.
That's interesting. So this is not typically paid for by third-party payers, skilled nurse for SNFs?
No.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, most people, because your short stay is only 30 days on Med B. After that, you hope to fall on the Medicaid and have Medicaid pay for them. I mean, as a person, but if you're if you're a provider, you're hoping that they're going to pay out of pocket.
But isn't that why I carry insurance? Like, why would if I have a Independence Blue Cross, for example, and I need a transition of care from a hospital, I'm not ready to go home. I probably get moved down to a SNF. If that's true, are you saying that generally speaking, my insurance would not pick up that cost of stay?
For you, they would, because you're not 65. But once you're 65 and you fall into the
That's the
Medicare
A part.
plans,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. So that's a play on the demographics and how that plays itself out.
Yeah.
Okay. And if Medicare does at a certain point, talk to me a little bit more about how it works around when the person has to start paying cash. Is it like Medicare is saying that I'll pick up the cost and this is where I'll stop, or like when am I suddenly responsible? Let's say I'm 65.
Yeah, so you got 30 days, I think, on Medicare. I'm not sure it's Part D, or I know B is for like nebulizer solution. So I mean, maybe it's Part D, but it's you have 30 days, and then after that, it's either you fall onto Medicaid
Right.
because you're indigent, or
Right.
you have to pay cash.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't realize that part of it. So if you have any money, you're going to pay for it after 30 days, and that 30-day number is the magic number.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the opportunities, obviously that there's not enough money in this, because that's why SNFs are shutting down.
Yeah.
Are there any opportunities then, or not so much? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there are opportunities, because I think there are probably some very SNFs that are doing very well. I mean, I remember meeting some people that got like private jets that own SNFs. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's money to be made, and I think it just depends on the area, right? I think if you're in a very impoverished area running a SNF, you probably have a lot of Medicaid population. You're probably not getting the greatest reimbursements, and it's probably state by state too. So maybe certain states reimburse a lot better than other states. But then I think if you are in a very affluent area, you probably have a fair amount of people that can afford to be there and are paying for that. So, and the skilled nursing facilities that own the pharmacies too are doing dramatically better as well. And then they can also take that pharmacy and service other skilled nursing facilities that aren't their own, and drive revenue from that perspective too.
So if you are an entrepreneur trying to get into this business and do this right, what you're really talking about is make sure you do your homework, make sure your location can support this, because otherwise you're probably going to get the SNFs you're serving are just going to shut down.
Yeah, or they're going to be very, very capitated in what they want to pay for, and your margins are going to be very tight. And we're all in this business, A, to help people, B, to make money, because it's a business. And for me, I'm always trying to drive my margin. You want to have a margin, right? Especially in this environment where you got to pay. I'm not sure what pharmacist rates are. I'm sure they're higher than they've been in the past, but technicians are definitely, and drivers and ancillary staff are definitely through the roof. And if you got to pay for that, you get the money's going to come from somewhere. Yeah.
So those are the opportunities and risks. Again, obviously legal risk, depending on how reimbursement goes. Any law changes will affect you as well. Anything else?
No, just changes in reimbursement are going to be a risk. And, I think we already know what it is, right? I mean, the other risks are, the population, remaining in place longer, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and obviously any population, if your population tends to stay longer than 30 days, that's going to start affecting you as well pretty dramatically, which is not a problem in other systems. Okay, this was amazing. I want to respect the timeline you've given me, so I'm going to start calling it. Before we go, any last words for people?
No, thanks for all our guests that we had on.
Thank you to all of them. These conversations are not intended to be legal, regulatory, or clinical advice and may not be right for you. These conversations are intended for educational purposes only. Conversations on this forum do not create